Welcome to Novel Ideas, where we chat with local authors. I'm Carolyn Luck, and with me here is my co-host, Josh Brogadier.
Carol, thanks so much for being with me again, and we have a great guest tonight, and her name is April Middleton, and if you don't know about her yet, you're about to find out. She is a licensed counselor and somebody who works a lot with children and with adults, and I'm very impressed that you decided to go for it and put out your first book, and congratulations on that. Welcome.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. April, why don't we just start at the beginning? You're a Framingham resident.
Yes.
Tell us sort of how you came up and where you went to school and a little bit of what your life was like in the early days.
Okay, so I came up in Framingham. I'm very much local. I kind of consider myself a townie. I went to just about every school in Framingham, the grade schools. I went to Framingham High. I also went to Framingham State for college and Mass Bay as well. So I've been in Framingham for pretty much most of my life. I finished off with my master's at Massachusetts School of Professional Psychology, which is now William James College, but I'm very much enjoying some of the work that I do here and just being a part of a lot of the cultural shifts we see in Framingham.
Nice. Tell us about your career and what you're actually doing now and how you're helping families.
Right, so for me, I'm a counselor, licensed mental health counselor, so I provide individual, family, and then some group in the past as well to many different people from different backgrounds. My focus is more trauma-based, like trauma-informed care. That's where I would say most of my passion is. But I work with some of anything, whether it's substance use, whether it's anxiety-based, depression, kind of you name it, we typically would see it. And then I also am now doing some clinical programs, management work as well during the day, and then also the counseling in the evening. So,
Wow, you've got a full plate.
very full plate, very full.
And you have a daughter as well?
Yes, I do. So my daughter, she's wonderful. She's also Framingham, very much so. She's into the arts. She's in middle school now, and they're doing the plays, The Little Mermaid coming up. So that has taken up a lot of my time with the back and forth to school and just helping at some of the activities and getting them ready. So their rehearsals are very intense, but I would say it's worth it, and they have about 3 or 4 shows coming up this weekend.
Wow.
Yes, a lot of back-to-back. She's a theater kid, if you would name one, very different from myself, very outspoken and like kind of very artsy as well.
So how did you come to find your passion? We can
For
tell
me,
you're passionate about what you're doing.
With the writing, I would say I've always kind of wrote. Even as a kid, I was into short stories, poetry, kind of you name it. I think I was kind of always writing. I also like to journal. I used to keep several journals, and I think that's where I kind of found the passion for writing. And through school, my teachers observed that I did have a knack for it, just being able to come up with different content.
So the writing is something you've always kind of thought about. There aren't too many kids, at least when they're young, who think, oh, I want to be a mental health counselor. Mostly because they're probably not even exactly sure what it is.
Right.
But it's something that you realized that you needed to do or you wanted to do. How did that come about?
I think even though most kids don't think about that, I was always kind of in that position where I was the middle person, the go-between, the problem solver, and just being able to listen to people. I was kind of always the one that everyone would go to. So I got really used to it and really good at just being able to tease apart different things and help people work through problems. So even at a younger age, I did actually want to be some sort of a counselor. I don't think I knew to this extent, but I knew I wanted to do something to do with like helping people and kind of listening, you know.
Yes, and how did your family play into this? Are you from a large family, extended family?
Yes. So very, very large family, and with me being the middle child, I think it helped being in the middle, seeing as how, you know, you have the older ones that maybe don't connect as well with the youngest, So again, being that kind of go-between. And also because I was in the middle, it forced me to be very responsible. You can't get away with as much as the baby who by then your parents are kind of letting them do anything. But then you have the older ones that kind of taught you the ropes. So just learning how to navigate that place in the middle, I think I was very familiar with that because of my upbringing.
And with your day-to-day now, you mentioned trauma, and just for people who don't know exactly what you're referring to with that, what kind of cases do you see specifically?
Kind of anything from someone that's been abused. And when we say trauma, that can come in any form, whether it's, say, physical, it might be mental, it might be emotional, it can be kind of any kind. And one of the things we've learned about trauma is it's not so much what happened to you, it's how it's affected you. So for example, one person, something traumatic might be as simple as their home getting robbed, we'll say. Even if the person wasn't home, but that invasion, that loss of safety, right, has created something where every night they're unable to go to sleep, or they wake up in the middle of the night waiting for something to happen. They might need several alarm systems or even to have someone there just to feel comforted. And to them, that could be traumatic. Or it could be something different where, say, someone dealt with the system. And when I say the system, that could be any governmental system, whether it's DCF, police involvement, substance use, where they've had to deal with courts, and even dealing with some of these systems. This can create trauma in and of itself as well.
Wow, that's pretty heavy work. Are you exhausted at the end of the day?
Very, very.
I mean, I just think in terms of what a person does during the course of a day, and when you're talking to people and hearing all of these stories, how do you separate yourself from their trauma?
Well, I think for me, being really good at transitioning, that helps. I usually take the ride home to put on some soothing music, and kind of with every mile, I let like the stories and some of the things that I've dealt with kind of fade away. So my thing is really on that ride home, however long it is, as each minute goes by, kind of allowing myself to let it go and just put it on a shelf. It takes compartmentalizing, but it's being able to put it kind of back here, and I'll pick it back up later or the next day.
Right. Not bringing it home.
And not bringing it home.
It's a pretty challenging thing.
Yes.
I can imagine
Yes.
that's difficult, especially when it's been on your mind all day, to try to be able to shut that off, and then, as you said, see your daughter.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think she helps me with her bubbly personality, and being a teenager, there's never a shortage of things to do, or young children kind of buzzing at the door. So she keeps me pretty busy. I think she's what allows me to kind of debrief a little bit more, because she's involved in so many things at school and after school that tends to take away the time in the evenings and then the weekends as well, doing things with her.
Oh my goodness, it's just something that I find so amazing, to be able to work from one aspect to another in terms of, you compartmentalize your life. Now, how do you find time to write? I mean, how did you, and where did you write this book? Because with teenagers around the house, there's often a lot of noise.
There was a lot of noise, and I wrote the book last summer. So it was a lot of downtime. The good thing is, because she wasn't in school, it was a lot of busy work with friends, or being outside, maybe jumping on our trampoline or swimming or doing something. So that did allow me time inside while she was busy kind of with the friends to write. And I just kind of sat down for about 2, maybe 2.5 weeks, and just hit the hammer and just started writing. Using like my laptop, and just I kind of kept going back, writing, and as you know, with the process, there's a lot of rewriting and writing and more writing, and when you think you're done, there's more writing, and then kind of getting some feedback, and then going back and doing more writing. So it was just really sitting down when I wasn't working So a lot of times in the evening or on the weekends when I had some downtime, doing that.
Do you have a special place where you write?
In my office at my house.
You have an office at home, yeah.
Yes.
That's very nice. I thought it was interesting when I was at Mark Twain's house, and he had this beautiful loft upstairs, huge room.
In Connecticut.
Yes,
yes,
in
I've been there.
Connecticut. And it was interesting because his desk was facing the wall. He had this gorgeous
Yes.
scene and all these trees outside, and the desk is over here facing the wall.
Yeah.
You kind of, I sort of can relate to that.
But he needed to put
Mine
himself
does,
in that
yeah.
space where he didn't kind of get caught up with the scene and what was outside.
Exactly.
And really to focus on
Yeah.
the work. So.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
So you had mentioned that you had thought about doing writing, or you'd always done some writing. When did you finally say to yourself, okay, I have all these ideas in my head, it is now time to put these down on paper, or in this case, on your laptop?
I would say when I kind of started seeing, I was kind of moved by some of the things that were going on in the news. And what inspired me in particular to write this story was the string of suicides that had started happening. And I just remember going back to Anthony Bourdain and the Kate Spade, and I remember they were like a week apart. This was back in June when I started writing. And I remember just thinking to myself, like Robin Williams and then some others, and all the names just kind of started flashing back of all the people that felt like maybe they couldn't share their stories. Maybe there was so much going on inside of them that they were unable to get out, and having to live with kind of all those demons or whatever was inside of them. It kind of took away their essence, if you will, and a lot of individuals just feeling disempowered. And then going to work and seeing a lot of individuals dealing with suicidal ideation or depression or whatever the case may be. That really inspired me to start writing something that allowed others to see that you could have a voice. You can go through some pretty horrible or traumatic events and you can still come out on the other side. It may not always look pretty, or it may not be the same as, say, someone else's blueprint, but if you kind of stay in the fight, stay in the race, and just every day that you wake up is a day that you can actually do something, that's what kind of inspired me to put some of this together.
Terrific and very insightful. We're going to be back in just a little bit. We're with April Middleton, and her book is I Am Not Crazy, and we are going to find out all about it and hear from her in just a little bit. Thanks for watching Novel Ideas. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Novel Ideas. We're here with a special guest, April Middleton, a Framingham resident, and we're going to be talking about her book, I Am Not Crazy. So it has a subtitle. Where did the title come from? Let's start with that.
I think the title just kind of came from a place of wanting to take out the stigma. A lot of times people feel like it's not okay to say I'm not okay, and that stops a lot of individuals from getting any type of help they need, whether it's the doctor, getting a checkup for something that turns out to be a legitimate issue, or whether it's, say, starting a fitness program but you don't want to acknowledge that you don't know where to start, or even, in my case, coming from the mental health background, dealing with a lot of things on the inside. But unfortunately, I think, and a lot here in this country, individuals don't want to be considered weak or crazy, like something is wrong with them. So it really stops a lot of people from getting kind of the help that they might need.
And the title's interesting, and this is something that she's clearly, reliving each part of and reminding herself throughout. Tell us about the character, and it reads like a journal, but I was wondering if it was a memoir, and you're saying part of it is fiction, part of it is not. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the book is kind of inspired by some lived experience as well as just a lot of the stories that I've heard or encountered from being a counselor. I hear so many different things. It was easy to pull from a lot of general experience and use that for the main character in the book. So our heroine in the book is Ariel Washington, and the story kind of follows her, and it does read like a memoir if you will, because you're reading kind of her diary or her journal, and you're going through all these experiences with her, so the reader's right along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the journal format gives it a lot of authenticity. I mean, I feel like it seems very, very real. In fact, at one point I felt like I should have closed the book and hid it in back, like I was sneaking in there reading somebody else's diary. And I feel like the authentic parts of this, I mean, there's little doodles incorporated and triple exclamation points and so on. What did your editors have to say about that?
Some things that they did change, even when it was typeset down to creating the book. Some parts didn't translate, but as far as the images, we just kind of kept them as authentic as possible. There was a way of kind of fitting it and putting it to print, so it did have to be formatted in a way where it could be digitally put in the book. But they really didn't change some of those parts. There were some things, obviously, just for print itself that had to be taken out, but I tried to keep it as close to kind of looking like you were reading someone's diary as possible.
And Ariel likes to draw, and there are obviously
Yes.
some pictures throughout of different things, some more symbolic, some flowers and such. When you did the drawings,
Yes.
are you an artist?
I would say yes. I mean, I have been in the past, not as much recently, but I did used to paint and draw and sketch. And then the cover art on the book was from a self-portrait that I did, and I won a gold key for the Boston Globe Scholastic Art Awards when I was in high school for that portrait. So I did, once upon a time, I was very much into arts. Maybe not as much as I could be now, but
Right.
it was something.
So just to follow up for one thing I was wondering then, so when you do these drawings specifically for this, given that it's a journal but not technically your own journal, right, because it's Ariel's journal, do you get your mind in what you think is her mind as you're doing these sketches, or do they come from different places previous to you writing this?
Right, so it's a combination of all of the above.
Okay.
So some is from sketches that I put in specifically for the book itself. Some were previous works of art, like some of the flowers or some of those things, where it was easy to kind of duplicate because I used to be a doodler as well. So it was easy to kind of come up with some of those images. So to answer your question, it was a combination of everything that you mentioned.
Okay.
Did you design the whole cover? It's
Yes.
very striking. I love the color choice and just the expression on her face fits the journal so well
Yes.
that it was almost like it sort of surprises me that the picture came first.
Yeah, so the picture actually, I couldn't decide on what to do for the cover, but I figured it would have to be something where if you look at the cover, it's kind of like you get lost in the gaze of the eyes. You get lost in that look, that expression on the face, and you kind of wonder what's behind the eyes there when you kind of look at the book. You don't know, is it pain? Is it sadness? Is it someone that's pensive? Are they thoughtful? And that kind of allowed me to capture that story right from the beginning. When you look at the cover, you want to know what's behind those eyes.
Yeah, the book has a lot of affirmations and sort of this beautiful pattern of being stuck and then growing and then sort of stopping and then growing some more, and then it's not a nice, pretty trajectory.
No.
And I wondered how that fit with the subtitle, as the subtitle is the end point. Tell us about
Right.
that.
So as you said, it's kind of not a linear thing. You go up, you go down, and that's kind of how I wanted it to be, so that it would be more relatable to people overall. I think with most of us, there's always times where we could maybe do a little bit better than we are. There might be life events that kind of rock you from where you want to be, but it's a matter of kind of picking yourself back up each time. And with the subtitle, I love and accept myself the way I am, that really pulls from, okay, I am not crazy, so I'm dealing with something, but I need to remind myself, and that's that positive affirmation piece, that if I don't get stuck in, say, the stinking thinking or the negative thinking, then I will get there someday. However, if I don't remind myself to do that, I can kind of stay stuck in the past or wherever I'm at the time.
Without revealing everything, because obviously we want people to read this,
Right.
Tell us a little bit about Ariel and what she's going through in her life.
So Ariel, kind of when the reader meets Ariel, she's just been going through kind of a tough time. She's just had a breakdown of sorts, if you will, and then just kind of the realization, okay, my whole life is kind of not what I thought it was going to be, and really dealing with kind of like an identity crisis, like where do I go from here? And when the reader meets Ariel, you get lost in her story. You get a sense that she's kind of broken but not completely broken. We'll say maybe wounded, right? I think of something like a caged bird that has maybe a broken wing that needs to heal. But in order to get it to heal, you kind of have to get it stuck. You have to keep it in that place, and even against its better judgment, you have to make sure it gets the care it needs. And that's kind of where you meet Ariel, going through the process of finding treatment and getting help for things that she maybe never knew were issues to begin with.
A lot of her challenges are with her mother, certainly. Not just her mother, but her mother is a big part of it. And, you know, when I think about the connection that people have with their family members, they love them, but it's so hard. And I felt that with her when I was reading it. It's that she's thinking about her mom constantly, and yet she can't get her head around some of the sadness and the bitterness that she's feeling. That was a very powerful choice you made, and I don't know, again, if that's somewhat autobiographical or just, you know, in terms of people you've met, but yeah, that was very effective.
Yeah, so with the story, it kind of pulled the mom character. I kind of used some maybe imagination and some just real life issues that I think any young girl will go through when they're coming of age and dealing with your parents, specifically kind of like your mother, right? But then I also kind of pulled maybe experiences with maybe aunts or uncles or different characters, because I am a counselor. There's some that don't grow up with mom or dad. So in this case, it was Ariel's mom, but for others, it could be their grandparent. It could be aunt or uncle that's raising them. It could be a caregiver. It could be someone in the foster care system. It could be an older sibling, say if they don't have parents to care for them. So I kind of wanted to make that character someone that you were really close to, so that you can't completely separate from them, right? You're kind of dependent on them in some ways, but then it's learning to reconcile that relationship where at times it's maybe not as healthy as you would like it to be, or healthy for you overall, and learning to navigate that. I love when you mentioned that, looking at the forgiveness piece, right? Because you go back and forth, you kind of vacillate between, sometimes I don't like you, I might even hate you, but then in order to move forward and grow, I have to learn to accept it and also acknowledge that I love you as well.
Yeah, that's very powerful. There's a few affirmations toward the end of the book that I thought were really beautiful. And if you'd like to take a moment and read just a little bit at the end there, it sort of makes you feel like, it just makes me feel toasty warm inside.
All right, so we're going to pick up towards the end of the book, and I'm just going to start reading from here. So this is an entry dated June 9, 2008. I've conquered my fears, and I would like to be done with it. These whitening trays feel weird, but it was free, so I definitely cannot complain. Thank you, Lord, for everything. I know I am blessed. At Home, Karen's, June 12, 2008. I received my license in the mail today. It looked so different, and the letters were blue instead of red, which was pretty cool. Colby fixed the shower for now. Who knows how long it will last. I just keep playing the waiting game to see how things are going to play out. Not just here, but everywhere in every aspect of my life. On the one hand, the stability was great, but on the other hand, sometimes it's like suffocating, choking the life out of me with restrictions. There are so many things beyond my control, and at the same time, I am just feeling my way through it all. I'm enjoying different parts of the new job. It is weird how I always end up in a beneficial situation on both ends. I guess I've got a lot of angels looking out for me. Thank God they did. Otherwise, Lord knows. At Karen's, June 14, 2008. All is coming along. Maybe not as well as I'd like, but it is really quite amazing. Today we saw Maria and her granddaughters, and Rose remembered them. And Katrina from Turns Out Maria's mother. Isn't it a small world? I saw Danny when I went shopping, and I feel so grateful for being myself again, and Rose being who she is.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, I mean, it just feels so very authentic
Yes.
as you read that part. So thank you. And I think we're just about out of time, so we thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your story and your collection of stories, actually, presented in such a nice way. Thank you for being with us.
And we look forward to the
thank
next
you.
one. You mentioned that you're hopefully going to be working on the second.
So I
great.
just started some writing, but I'm going to take my time with it. Probably later in the year. That'll be something that I'll be moving forward with.
Okay. April, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
That's great. Thank you, Josh, my awesome co-host. It's
Glad to be
always
with
so
you.
fun being here. And thank you to the folks here at Access Framingham. You do a great job. And thanks to our viewers for joining us for Novel Ideas. We'll see you next time.